What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies, essentially. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you were searching on the internet for other top anticipated list of 2018, and you accidentally stumbled across this one in your search, and you're taking a chance on us, well, congratulations, you hit the jackpot, because we're going to be the best one, and if you're a movie fan, well, come join the community. That's what me and my co-hosts, we love doing. We talk about movies, we are passionate about it, and hey, if you aren't a movie fan, you accidentally stumbled across us for whatever reason, we will convince you to be one. This is episode 212, and if you're new to the show, welcome. What we typically do is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that drop throughout the week, and we will commentate on them for you guys, and then we will have a review of big movie, small movie, a big and small movie, two small movies, two big movies that come out that particular weekend, and review them for you, and then we will have the box office results to accompany said films. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. You guys are always welcome. We just have the best fan base here. You guys are amazing. I'm so glad that you guys just love all the episodes, especially last week. The numbers were a lot bigger than usual, so thank you for that. But for this week, we're going to go by the typical structure. This is going to be like last week. It's, last week was the end of the year, kind of a nice little celebration, a recap of 2017. And for this week on episode 212, we are going to go over our top 10 anticipated films for 2018. This is the first weekend in 2018, so no movie review, even though Joel and I have both seen Insidious: The Last Key. That was the big major release this weekend. We are going to be going our anticipation list, so we are going to get started. But before we get started, I gotta go introduce the wonderful co-hosts over there, Mr. Joel C to the Joel C, and Chase Lee together forever. That's gonna be on our wedding card. You guys are all invited. So, Joel, how are we doing this week? It's the first weekend of 2018. Have you made it yet? Have you survived?
I am dead. I'm a zombie. I'm gone. No, it's been a good week actually. It's weird. We had a slightly eventful year in 2017, and we're headed into another one. But I have this weird, strong, intuitive feeling, and those are usually right, that this year is going to be a bit better. I know that's probably going to jinx it, and everything's going to go to hell. But I feel like this year is going to be looking up a little bit more than the last year, which won't be hard to do. But as for this week, it's been a quick one. It doesn't feel like it's been a week or almost a week that we've been in 2018 yet. And it's been good. How about for you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good week. It's like you said. It's like I feel something in the air. I don't know if it was the pollen. I don't know if I have like legit allergies. But if it's an allergen, then I have the allergy of 2018 because I'm just like you, man. I feel like this year is going to be a whole lot better. You and I get to experience our first film festival together. We're going to just go at it hard and just review as many movies for you guys. Like you guys have no idea what's coming down the pipe for that Dallas International Film Festival. We're going to be throwing so many reviews at you guys. It's going to be so much fun. But I'm really excited to get this year started, and what better way to talk about the movies that are coming up? So we're going to start with that. But before we begin, as usual, please spread this around and let people know this is the definitive movie podcast that you just love listening to. And if you handed this podcast over to one of your grandparents because you wanted to troll them or convince them that this is a really good podcast. Hello, fellow grandpa, grandma. We're glad that you can join us and listen. You can't hear us? Thank you for joining. No. So before we begin, 2018, Joel, just from looking at the landscape to try to whittle down this list, it is an interesting batch. Literally, as I was going down the IMDb page, which is where I kind of looked at my reference for all these movies. It's interesting because from January to about May to July, it's like big blockbuster fare, typical of what we see come out in Hollywood. There's a big one that comes out in the winter, spring, and a bunch that come out through the summer. And from like August to December, it's like nothing but small movies. I mean, that's typically how it goes, but like it's such a disparaging separation that I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like a literal kind of blocking off of like Oscar movies and blockbuster fare. So I'm looking forward to talking about them. I mean, this was one of the most competitive lists I have seen in quite some time. I mean, there was a bunch I couldn't put on there, like, like Annihilation or like Isle of Dogs, Super Troopers 2, which I'm probably the only person on the planet that's looking forward to that. Sue me. Like Venom, I didn't put that on there, or Dark Phoenix. I mean, Wreck-It Ralph 2, Joel, I couldn't put that on there because there's just so much to talk about. I mean, when you were making your list, did you find that anxiety was like slowly latching onto you and not letting go?
I did. It's a crazy year coming out. I think that somebody put it really well a while ago, and it's sort of shifted around and it's not this this bizarre. But somebody was saying a while ago that like every week has some sort of event movie, maybe not a blockbuster event movie, but something big is coming out like almost each week, excepting these first few early weeks. I think that they're talking about the months that count, which are really February through December. But even January, I mean, who would have thought that a Maze Runner movie was coming out in January? And it's because there's nowhere else to fit something like that. Yeah. Even though it's a big, YA thing, it's just one of those years. There are movies coming out. I didn't really collect a bunch of honorable mentions, but I could easily pick like 20 myself. There's so much to look forward to, and anyway, I apologize for not thinking that far ahead. I just kind of was chipping away at the actual 10 and didn't really like gather in my brain, what I'm super duper looking forward to that didn't make the list. Generally speaking, I find that honorable mentions to an anticipated list is kind of a, you could just list 100 movies that you're looking forward to.
That's the problem.
It's much harder. It's much harder to make honorable mentions for something like this than for a list of movies that I liked, because
correct.
It's like you've seen them. So with this, you can just list off 100 movies that you're looking forward to, but a lot of those movies you look back to possibly if they're terrible and think, wow, that was on my list of most anticipated or whatever, or right outside it. And so it's kind of hard to do that, but certainly there are a bunch, that I'm really excited for. And these 10 are, I guess, the 10 that I'm most excited for. Just doing my little deep dive research that I've done the past couple weeks, these are the ones that I gravitated to. It's weird, though. Usually I gravitate because I am a fan. I'm a movie fan, especially of big event movies. I usually gravitate to the big event movies. Mm-hmm. But, one that I feel like we're going to talk about, Avengers Infinity War, didn't make this list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much looking forward to it. We talked about the trailer. I was very high on it, as you know. I think it looks like a lot of fun. I think that what kept it off the list was the fact that I just have this fear that it's going to be overstuffed.
Gotcha.
And I'll get into that more in depth later on. I'm very strongly assuming that I'm correct there, but in any case, it's weird because like the bottom three choices, the 10, 9, and 8, are where my big blockbuster event movies are.
That's interesting you say that, because I'm actually the opposite. I put the smaller ones from 5 through 10, and then I have 3 blockbusters, and then my number 1 is just, that was a foregone conclusion. So that's interesting that you say that, because I completely switched my list.
My number 1 didn't actually emerge until these last couple of weeks. That's how strongly I feel about this, because I didn't know that it existed. And then when I saw that it was possibly coming out, and I'll actually I think that we should both talk about the word possibly here in a second. But when I heard that it was possibly coming out, it immediately jumped to the top. It was immediate, because whatever it is, and I'll get to that later. It's an interesting one. And speaking of which, we should talk about possibly. We are working on this list, as you have with Jackson in the past, on the assumption that these movies are coming out this year.
Correct.
Because there are, as we see, there there are movements every day that happen, or every week, if not every day. And so my number one is one that does not have a release date. We don't even know if it's going to be finished this year. And so just keep that in mind.
Wait a minute. You told me that your number one was, you didn't even know about it until a couple weeks ago, but the way you just described your number one is almost like my number one.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, in order to get to that, we have to chip away at the bottom and work away from the top. So let's start with number 10. I'm going to go ahead and just kick this one off because what better way to kick off my most anticipated 2018 list than with the follow-up from the director of Moonlight. If Beale Street Could Talk is my number 10. If you guys don't know what this one is about, I'm going to pull up the synopsis here. A woman in Harlem desperately scrambles to prove her fiancé's innocence of a crime while carrying their first child. I could care less what it's about. It's the fact that Barry Jenkins has come back to write and direct and just slap us in the face with another piece of great cinema. And what's even more interesting about this, because just like what Joel and I were talking about right before we recorded, these movies we have not seen yet. So we can't really, and most of these, we have not seen pictures or trailers, so we have to just kind of go off of, who's involved, who's in it, and or plot synopsis. And, the Barry Jenkins angle has already got me. But Dave Franco is in this. I didn't know that he was in this. Now, I knew that Barry Jenkins was doing a follow-up. You and I talked about it a long time ago, but we might have mentioned Dave Franco, but I guess I forgot. But that's awesome. Listen, I said this when we were reviewing the Disaster Artist. I was like, Dave Franco has shown some chops. Because I never really cared for him in the past. James has always been the superior Franco in my opinion. But he showed a little bit of diversity in that movie. And that was the first time where I was like, he played an actual character and not just, I just saw Dave Franco smiling the whole time. Even though he's got some killer dimples. It doesn't matter. You need to convince me that you were sunken into your role and I don't see the actor. And in that movie, him and James both did that. So Dave Franco, Barry Jenkins, and the actual plot sounds pretty cool. I mean, it's going to be more of a crime movie, more crime drama than, Moonlight, which was a really great romance drama. So I'm excited to see Barry do the shift. So that is my number 10. Like I said, he could do a Lowe's commercial, and I'll be super ecstatic. I'll be like, Barry Jenkins, man, Barry Jenkins. And on a side note, if you have not been following this man on Twitter, he has had the most entertaining tweets in the past 2 days.
He is the most delightful person ever to have a Twitter.
He has such a warm presence online. It's so great. But
it's either him or Zoe Kazan. They're kind of tied, I think, for most delightful people on Twitter. It's great.
It's great. So Joel, I mean, is this? I'm assuming this has got to be on your list, right?
I'm gonna pass on this one. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. So Joel, I'll go ahead and toss it over to you. What is the one that barely scraped in there?
It says a lot that this is the one that barely scraped in here, but it's Incredibles 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is the animated movie that I'm most excited for. I talked up the Spider-Man animated movie that's coming out, and that's right outside, probably somewhere right outside my 10.
That trailer was so good.
Yeah, it was so good, but I gotta go with a sequel to one of the best animated movies of the century so far. It's going to catch us up almost. It's such a great joke, but it's almost immediately after the first one ends. And, we don't really know much about it. I mean, literally, one of the synopses kind of floating around is everyone's favorite superhero family returns, which is pretty much everything we know. We know that Bob Odenkirk's in here. We know that Catherine Keener's in here. We know that there's a new villain, but that's about it. And I got to say, I'm still super excited. I mean, to have Holly Hunter, Craig T. Nelson, Samuel L. Jackson, all the kids back, it's great, and I just can't wait to see what they have up their sleeve, which is nice saying that about a Pixar sequel, because we know how those sometimes go. And, for every Toy Story 2, there's a Cars 2. And
that should be on a T-shirt in the Disney store.
It really is. I mean, that's basically the spectrum right there. Yeah. Probably the best sequel and definitely the worst sequel. So yeah, I'm so excited to see this. I mean, it's it's not an original work, and certainly those are more exciting from Pixar. Maybe that's why this is number 10.
Mm-hmm.
If I guess if it was an original work, it would register a little highly, a little more highly, a little higher, whatever I'm trying to say. But as of right now, I mean, certainly being one of the 10 most anticipated is a lot in this year that we have coming up, and I can't wait. So, are you going to pass on this one?
No, I'm actually going to talk about it. It didn't make my list. Like I told you guys up front, I only chose 3 big movies. And one of them I wouldn't even count as a big movie, but like that was one of those ones where, yes, I had it on there. I couldn't do it. I love The Incredibles so much. I can't wait until you and I see Incredibles 2. We get to see the awesome Pixar short in front of it, or whatever they put in front of it, just to get pumped up for it.
Olaf's Frozen Adventure. That's what they're going to put in front of it.
You know, if they do an Olaf's Frozen Adventure 2, I might just do the same thing I did with Coco and be like, listen, you know what? As a business move, it was terrible, but, I understand. But no, it's one of those things to where I'm excited to see it. I don't care where they go with the story. I'm excited to see all these characters come back. And just like with Toy Story, they have some of the best ensemble voice casting out of any Pixar film. So I'm excited to see Craig T. Nelson come back and good old Holly Hunter. So and then Jason Lee's coming back as what's his name?
Syndrome,
yeah. I don't know why I wanted to say Sinestro. I was like, that's a Green Lantern character. But no,
that's Green Lantern, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we don't want to associate with that. And of course, Samuel Jackson coming back as Mr. Frozone. So I'm excited to see the sequel, but unfortunately, I couldn't go with that because once again, this was a tight list to do.
It's a tough year. It's a tough year. I went back and this is the only animated movie on my list. I went back and forth with this. Early Man looks really good.
Yes.
Isle of Dogs looks
yep.
amazing. Yeah, I mean, especially considering I love Fantastic Mr. Fox so much. And ultimately, I was just like, man, I got to put one in here.
Well, and there's also an untitled Leica project coming out. There's Wreck-It Ralph 2. Like, there's so many animated movies coming out.
Wreck-It Ralph 2 is going to be awesome. I love the first movie, and I was just like, you know what? I got to leave some room for some other things than animated movies, even though this seems like such a banner year. Yeah. And I had to go with my heart, and my heart said, I'm most excited about this. I'm really kind of excited about like all of them this year. It's a crazy enjoyable year, except for stuff like Duck Duck Goose and all that. It's really promising with the big companies this year. So I'm excited for that. So what is your number 9? Your number 9.
Okay, so this is going to be fascinating because just like I'm going to go ahead and just say it up front, but I'm going to tell you guys why I'm just going to use its kind of ghost name right now because it's the untitled Cloverfield movie, also known as God Particle, but it's not called God Particle anymore because just like with 10 Cloverfield Lane, it was named something else. And
The Cellar.
The Cellar, and then 2 months before it came out, that's when they dropped it 10 Cloverfield Lane. So until we actually get a dropping of a trailer, we won't know the title, and that's
11 Cloverfield Particle.
Oh, good dear God. And that's why I've been telling you guys this from the get-go when Joel and I have been talking about J.J. Abrams. This is probably my favorite thing his company Bad Robot has ever done. I love the Cloverfield movies. I love their marketing. It's so mysterious and just alluring at the same time. Like, you don't know what the hell is going to happen, but you're so fascinated on where they're going to go because you have no idea where they're going to go. But I'm going to go ahead and just call it God Particle for now. But I've enjoyed the first Cloverfield. I remember sitting in the theater when it came out. I still remember the Star Trek teaser in front of it. I still remember that whole experience. It was one of the few movies that kind of reinvigorated the found footage franchise. I enjoyed it as a monster movie. I enjoyed it as a found footage movie. All the trailers leading up to it were very mysterious. We had no idea what was going to happen, but I was very satisfied. And I'm one of the few people that will back up the third act of 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't mind it as much as other people, but yes, it's no denying that the first 2/3 of that movie are just so expertly done, so claustrophobic, so intense, and John Goodman gave one of the best performances of his career in that movie, which is it's just funny to say because it's a monster movie, but I like the fact that this can be an anthology series. They can go anywhere with this story. Case in point, this third one is going to be in space, so it's going to be a mixture, hopefully a better version of Life. That movie with, you guys got to remember that movie with Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal with the little, floaty sperm creature floating throughout the space station.
Terrible movie.
Yeah, well, it wasn't terrible. It was just it was fine.
I thought it was bad. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, hopefully it'll be a better version of that.
Right.
Yeah. So if you guys want to know kind of what it might be like, but I'm gonna go with Guard Particle as number 9. But I can't really talk about this movie because there's really nothing much about it. It's just like with 10 Cloverfield Lane, we don't know anything until a trailer drops for it. So, Joel, I'm going to just take a wild guess in the dark that this is not on your list. But you and I have discussed this Cloverfield franchise before. Are you excited for this? And do you like the mysterious advertising campaign they always do for these movies?
If I were to have a number 11, this is probably it. But it doesn't quite make it, and it didn't really ever have a shot because I want to know more about this. And that's really the only thing keeping it from the list. I love Cloverfield, the first one. It's right outside my top 10 of 2008. It's not just a great monster movie. It's a really fun comedy. Sort of sci-fi action comedy at times. It's got terrific dramatic chops, from the moments of humanity and desperation, and it's a surprisingly deep movie. It's a great 9/11 allegory, sort of like that year's answer to War of the Worlds in that way. So I'm a huge fan of that. I liked 10 Cloverfield Lane, maybe not as much as most people seem to, just because of that third act. I'm not a defender of it. I think that the script felt like something that was self-contained until they decided that they could reel it into a franchise, and the way they did that seemed a bit tiresome to me. But I liked it still up until that point. It's a really solid, compact thriller. John Goodman's great, like you said. But I'm excited to see them go to the opposite ends of literally they go from inside a bunker to space. The little whispers we're hearing about the plot are really interesting, and I'm a big sci-fi guy, so I'm super excited for it. It didn't make my list, but very excited to see how this all comes together.
Okay, so you just crapped on my number 9 choice. What is your number 9 choice?
I didn't crap on your number 9. My number 9. So how I mentioned that I had to put one animated movie in here and then leave room for the rest. That's how I felt about Marvel this year. As fun as I think Ant-Man's likely to be, and as fun as Avengers Infinity War looks, my number 9 is where I have Black Panther. Ryan Coogler's enough of a reason for this, but the fact that it has this cast: Chadwick Boseman, Lupita Nyong'o, Michael B. Jordan, Denai Guerrera from The Walking Dead, Angela Bassett, Daniel Kaluuya in a little role, Andy Serkis is back as the I forgot his name. Anyway, Martin Freeman's back. Forrest Whitaker's in this. I haven't been this excited for a superhero movie in a while, and I feel like this is going to be one of the best, up there with stuff like Spider-Man: Homecoming and Iron Man 3. And I can't wait. It also has the first female cinematographer in a Marvel movie, Rachel Morrison, who shot Mudbound just recently and killed it with that movie, and I feel like she's going to kill it with this one. I'm so excited. It looks like a really, really good action movie too. I sometimes complain about the action beats in Marvel movies being a little processed looking, a little familiar, but here they look like they're utilizing a lot of interesting camera movements, and I can't wait for that. So I'm just so excited for this one. And then there's this is the second of 3 big gigantic event movies that I have on my list, and it's certainly we're almost to it. It's a month and a half away, if that, 7 weeks I think. So I'm excited for us to get it. I think the earliest movie on this list for me. So
Yeah, it's a lot of people tend to forget that. It's like, yes, Infinity War is almost here. Believe it or not, it's only 5 months away. Ant-Man and the Wasp is 7 months away, but Black Panther is less than 2 months away. Like, so people tend to forget that, and I'm looking forward to it. It's not on my list, but like you said, Coogler is the man. When you look at this guy's career, he started with a low-budget movie that cost as much as a York peppermint patty, and then with Fruitvale Station. Then he moves up.
Killed it with that movie too. That was a good movie.
Yeah, that was a great debut. And so you're like, okay, you got this guy on your radar, and Michael B. Jordan, by the way. And then you move up to a middle movie like Creed, and that blew everyone away.
The best movie of 2015 for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was on Joel's number one. I mean, it didn't really quite make my list, but I still enjoyed it as a movie. I'm not really a huge boxing fan movie, but believe it or not, this is weird to say, is that the past few years, I found myself to be more engrossed into that subgenre because, like Joel, I really loved Creed. I really loved Southpaw. I really liked, oh man. Joel, what were some other boxing movies that have come out? I'm kind of drawing a blank.
Wasn't Chuck one you liked?
Yeah, Chuck was actually pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah,
Liev Schreiber was like
I didn't see it, but I seem to remember you spoke, fairly positively of it.
Yeah, Chuck was like Liev Schreiber basically being a loose cannon, and I thought it was kind of cool. So boxing films have definitely made their impact in the past few years, and I've really enjoyed that quite a bit. So Black Panther, not on here, but I am looking forward to it, and it was cutthroat. I had to pick one comic book movie.
So basically it would be there in a less eventful year?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you guys know if I could have my way, 80% of my list would be comic book movies. But I don't want to roll Joel's eyes, and it's not because I wanted to impress Joel or impress you guys. Joel and I, we love both. We love big films. We love smaller films. It's just that the past few years I've just been so just kind of into the indie culture that like most of my picks are smaller films, but I still want to give a nod to the bigger ones I'm excited for. But moving on to my number 8, this just once again just proves if you make a great film and it's going to be on my top 10 list in any given year, I'm going to look forward to your future stuff. And my number 8, I don't know if it probably will be higher on Joel's list, but my number 8 is from, as you're going to notice, there's a trend from 10 to 5 or follow-up movies directed by my number 1 pick from 2014, Damien Chazelle in First Man. Yes, I honestly could care less what Damien Chazelle does. I love Whiplash to death. I've seen the movie like 5 times. Joel and I are kind of the same on La La Land. It's like, yeah, that was a good movie. Like, we're not like, losing our minds over it, but it had its place in film history last year, but ultimately Moonlight kicked its ass, and I'm glad it did. But First Man, when you have Ryan Gosling at the helm, I'm getting sick and tired of this man like just losing at the box office because he's one of the most talented people in the business, but unfortunately he keeps getting himself into these big blunders with all these blockbusters, especially with Blade Runner 2049. That lost Alcon a lot of money, just like with Point Break. They might as well just close shop at this point. But Ryan Gosling is one of these talents where he just keeps getting work, and I'm glad he does, whether he does these small, obscure movies like Only God Forgives or Drive, or bigger movies like a Blade Runner. I'm always fascinated as to what he does, and when you have him under the direction of Damien Chazelle, again, like he did with La La Land, it's a foregone conclusion. I'm excited for it. And then you have this like awesome supporting cast, whether it be like a Jason Clarke or Kyle Chandler, Corey Stoll. It's just, the list goes on. John Bernthal. It's like Claire Foy from The Crown. It's like this list couldn't get any better. And when you have Damien Chazelle, who it is a bit of a sham that he won Best Director. I'm not going to lie. I was still rooting for anyone else but him. I'm not saying he didn't do a good job on La La Land, but I wish someone like a Barry Jenkins would have won that award. But it is what it is. but I don't look
As
at
good a job as he did, it was certainly a soft lob down the middle for them.
exactly. And to be honest with you, I still think his superior film is Whiplash. He should have won Best Directing for that movie because that is one of the best edited movies I've ever seen in my life, and that has to do with the precise vision of Chazelle, and really bringing out. Yeah, and it's
make it in 19 days. I mean,
it's insane. And J.K. Simmons won an award for that. And a director's main priority is to get the best performance out of an actor. So that is a direct correlation to him. So when I look at Whiplash, that is the catalyst I put with Damien Chazelle on of future films. I don't look at La La Land. So I'm looking forward to First Man, and I want to see a different kind of character portrayal of Neil Armstrong rather than a jazz player in La La Land, and I think he's going to really bring something out in Ryan Gosling. So that's why that is my number 8. I'm assuming, Joel, it is higher.
No, it's not on my list.
Oh, whoops.
I'm excited for it for sure. Whiplash and La La Land both made my top 5s for their year. So I'm definitely excited. I think that it sounds pretty killer. It's certainly a change of pace. He's done 2 music movies, music themed movies, I should say, in some way in a row, and now he's doing this. It's certainly a change of pace. That's exciting. It's not on my list, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. So my number 8 is my last of the 3 big event movies, and ironically enough, all 3 of them are in the first part of the year. But this one is Ready Player One from Steven Spielberg. I cannot wait for this. I know that the book is divisive. Some see it as this holy grail work of pop culture, a pop culture love letter, sort of. Some people see it as lousy and pandering. I haven't read it, so I don't really know, nor do I care. That's because it's Steven Spielberg, who, there's few directors who know how to handle big, brash spectacle like this. And I this has a bunch of pop culture, touchstones in it. The Iron Giant, the DeLorean, we noticed, I think. Freddy Krueger. It just looks like this big toy box, and that's why I can't wait to sit in that theater March 30th, see this movie, and just have a great time with it. It's got Ty Sheridan, who's this great upcoming star. You interviewed him, right, or something like that?
Yeah,
or you talked to him or something.
That's one of my favorite memories. Is that I got to interview little Ty Sheridan when he was promoting Joe, and this was right before that stupid zombie movie X-Men, before he blew up. So I got to at least be in a round table interview with Mr. Sheridan before he's now as big as he is. So I was fortunate enough.
I've been a fan of his since The Tree of Life, and he was great in Mud.
Yes.
And, and I wasn't a huge fan of Joe, but he was the best thing about that movie. And you're totally right. It's a great career coming up for him. And now this is going to be his biggest movie yet. Certainly because he hasn't had, his role in the X-Men, the last X-Men movie wasn't this big. So this will be a big. He's
the main character.
Yeah, he's the main character. This will be a big thing for him. Ben Mendelsohn's in it. Mark Rylance, Simon Pegg has a role. Olivia Cook, awkwardly T.J. Miller. But I'm super excited to see another big Spielberg event movie, because The Post was great, but I gravitate more toward, in terms of anticipation, seeing Spielberg, show his stuff with big, gigantic movies with lots of special effects. Nobody, or very few directors, do it better than this guy. And, he's the director of Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you don't have confidence in him to make this movie work, I after that movie, I don't know. I don't know you. Anyway, I'm super excited. Chase, is this on your list?
It is not on my list, but okay. I really love the trailers. They're very energetic. It reminds me of if Spielberg took the kind of imagination and kind of the sci-fi elements of like an E.T., the fun of Raiders, and the visual spectacle of Minority Report, and you crammed it into a movie, that's what this is. And
the color scheme, especially, it's obviously from Janusz Kaminski, who shot Minority Report in this sort of washed-out lighting. And here he seems to have taken some of that and adopted it to the real world in this movie. Not to the virtual reality, but to the real world stuff. And so that's really fascinating. And it's going to be interesting to see Janusz Kaminski's work in this, all digital landscape that he's working with. It just looks so fascinating to me on a visual spectacle level. And I think the plot's a lot of fun. I mean, here it is. It's in a future where people are obsessed with a pop culture aping virtual reality world called Oasis. A teenager embarks on a treasure hunt for the fortune of the world's creator. I mean, that sounds fun. It's like an update of, Willy Wonka kind of, entering this fantasy world for a mysterious goal, kind of. It's great, and I can't wait to see what this movie has up its sleeve. So that's my number 8.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you guys don't know this, to peel back the curtain of Joel's life a little bit, he's a Steven Spielberg fanatic. I knew this was going to be on there somewhere, but to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be top 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this year is just like there's so many choices, and I was stunned to find myself having a big time Spielberg movie not in the top 5. I was as surprised as you. So certainly I am a huge Spielberg fan, especially when he puts on his play toy hat, if you want to call it that. It's his plastic hat. I don't know what to describe it. It's honestly like I should have just like done ties for all of my top 5, like 10 and 9 are tied at number 5, and then I would have all of these movies in a nice top 5, and I would have room for more. But alas, can't do it. So what's your number 7?
So my number 7 is interesting because I believe it will probably be. I've always wondered, like, if people in higher power would ever create a YouTube channel and make their own top 10 lists of movies that come out. I just think it would be fascinating to, like, see a politician be like, oh, these are my top 10 favorite movies of the year. And I just have this weird, strong, tingly feeling on my nips that this will be Mike Pence's number 1 favorite movie of the year. Is my number 7, and it's Boy Erased, directed by Joel Edgerton, and the plot synopsis is this, and this is why I believe Mike Pence will love it. He just loves these types of movies. The son of a Baptist preacher is forced to participate in a church-supported gay conversion program, and it stars Lucas Hedges as the main the main boy, and basically it's his continuing character of Lady Bird, if you've seen Lady Bird. So Boy Erased... The only reason I put this on my list is because, 1, the plot sounds fascinating. 2, the cast. Out of this world. You got Nicole Kidman. Joel Edgerton is also going to be in it. Russell Crowe. I mean, come on. But I'm going to say 2 words right now that made me just automatically put this on my list. The Gift. I absolutely love that movie. That was Joel's first... Not Joel that I'm speaking to. The other Joel, Joel E.
That was my first correct.
Right. Joel Edgerton's first directorial debut, which was The Gift. That was a complete surprise. I thought the trailers looked like garbage. It looked like a traditional, just stupid, like jump scary little thriller. I was like, this is gonna be dreadful. But I heard around the grapevine before I saw it that was actually a really good thriller. It was a top-notch thriller in its genre, and that's all it was. It was a straight-up thriller, and it was delivered so well on a debut level that people were just kind of stunned. I agree.
It is terrific.
It's a terrific film. I left that theater going, wow, if Joel can keep doing stuff like this, then we're going to be good to go. Except this is not going to be like that. It's going to be more of a drama, and, with homosexuality and gay marriage and stuff, that's a hot topic. I don't know why it is for some people, but that is one of those topics that, kind of makes people uncomfortable. And with this type of plot, this is going to be one of those movies that's going to strike a nerve with a lot of people, good and bad. And with the cast, the plot, and Joel Edgerton behind the camera and in front of it, because actually, I don't really typically like when a actor gets behind the camera and also puts himself in the movie. But I'm not going to lie, because I can't, deny this. He was very good as Gordy or Gordo in The Gift. The creepy stalker person going in, infiltrating Jason Bateman and Rebecca Hall's life. I trust that his role in this will not be, up front or whatever. I think it's going to be more of a side role like it was in The Gift, because it seems like this is going to be more of Lucas Hedges' story. And, I'm telling you, Joel, ever since we got out of that screening of Manchester by the Sea, I had my thoughts on it. Joel had his thoughts, but his first words were, man, Lucas Hedges, he's going places. And he is. It seems like every single year or every single month now we hear about a new Lucas Hedges project. So I'm really looking forward to this because Joel Edgerton has proved himself as a director, and he's one of the best actors working today, except when he's under orc makeup. Joel, I don't know. Is this one on your list?
It isn't, but it's right outside. It was very, very close. I think that the plot is fascinating, as you do. It's interesting, like you said, the dynamic of the roles that Edgerton gives himself whenever he directs a movie, because in The Gift, he was the psychopath, creepy guy. In this one, he's going to be the quote unquote camp counselor guy, the leader of it. So there's going to be a creepy factor there. And you just think that a director who's directing himself as an actor would give himself an easier role, I guess, to play, just because there's so much he has to do already. And but yes, super interesting. The plot is definitely fascinating, and I'm excited to see how that turns out. My number 7, I have a tie. I mentioned to Chase before starting this that I had a tie on my list, and here it is. It's interesting because both of these movies are sci-fi movies, which means that they sort of have this weird crossover between my 3 previous and the 6 that are going to come after them. Because they are sci-fi movies, which means that in some way there's spectacle involved, and there's definitely going to be spectacle involved in these. But they seem to be a lot closer to thinking man's sci-fi than, big blow 'em up with a lot of spaceships zooming around and lasers blasting and all of that. These do not seem like they're going to be that. So I just put them in alphabetical order within the 2. And so the first one is Ad Astra from James Gray. This one is about, and I'm going to quote, an autistic astronaut travels in search of his father who's been missing for 20 years. Now, the release date for this is January 11th, 2019, but as a lot of people have been saying, if this thing is even half as good as it sounds and even half as good as James Gray's usual movies, then they're obviously going to be doing a December qualifying run just to get just to get it out there and seen. But it's got a great cast: Brad Pitt, Tommy Lee Jones, Ruth Negga, Donald Sutherland, and then out of nowhere, Jamie Kennedy. It's just really fascinating. It's got Hoyt van Hoytema as its cinematographer. He's been working with Nolan for a couple of movies now. And this is the kind of sci-fi I love. It sort of seems like it's going to be a Contact kind of movie. Contact or well, not Arrival, because Arrival didn't go to space, but in that vein of more thoughtful sci-fi than we're used to, or the studios are used to. This is the first studio movie for James Gray since We Own the Night. He just He's just coming off of The Lost City of Z. As y'all remember, that was my number 8 last year. I love his movies. We Own the Night's probably my top 5 of 2007. The Immigrant was a big favorite. I love The Yards. It's one of the great modern crime movies. And now he's going into space, and this is his first sci-fi kind of movie. And I just cannot wait to see what he does with that genre. The other one definitely doesn't remind of something that Robert Zemeckis would direct. Instead, it sort of feels to me like we're not prepared for this movie, in that it feels like a Tarkovsky movie, something like Solaris or Stalker, and that's Annihilation from Alex Garland. This one's got Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tessa Thompson, Oscar Isaac, Gina Rodriguez. Great cast. This is the synopsis. A biologist heads into an environmental disaster zone with 3 other scientists in search of her husband, who went missing on a similar expedition. Now, think of this in terms of Ex Machina, because I have problems with Ex Machina. It's a pretty cool movie, but it was also very, very small in scope for a wide release movie from a considerable studio, and it all mostly takes place in a house. It's not what you would usually anticipate. There's a lot of graphic nudity, or I guess not really graphic nudity because of what's in the movie, but nevertheless, what we think of as graphic nudity, there was a lot of it, and it was one of those that sort of tested those boundaries and kind of redefined a few of them. And so here is a movie that I would not be surprised does not have a lot of clean resolution in it, does not have a lot of easy answers, or maybe even answers, but is all about mood, tone, characters. I would not be surprised. We do get a little bit in the trailer of Natalie Portman shooting a machine gun off and yelling a lot and all of that, and there's it's sort of edited like it's an action movie, but this is the director of Ex Machina we're talking about. He wrote 28 Days Later and Sunshine, both movies that didn't resort to action to try to fulfill their desire as genre pieces. They were thoughtful, and I think that this is going to be a situation, and I can't wait to see it happen. So those are my number 7, Ad Astra and Annihilation. Are either of these Chase?
Oh, sorry, you so someone's internet is crapping out, and I don't know whose. Let's play a game. Who drops out first? No, none of these are on my list, but I am looking forward to both of them because I did read up on both of them when I was looking down all the movies, and of course we've seen the trailer to Annihilation. That looks great. I really liked Ex Machina for what it was. It's one of the first movies I noticed the A24 logo where they were more prominent, where I was like, oh yeah. And of course, Ex Machina famously kicked the ass of major studio blockbuster films and took home the best special effects at the Oscars, which was such a surprise. I was like, wow, that movie cost like $2 and like an expired coupon, and it outbeat something like a Mad Max Fury Road, which cost way more money than Joel and I will see in like 100 lifetimes. So it was crazy to see that win. As far as the James Gray one goes, of course I know your love for James Gray. Lost City Z was one of the worst theater experiences I had last year. Not the movie, the experience, so with the theater and whatnot. But I'm looking forward to both. But just by proxy, since I haven't seen many James Gray films, I'm going to have to go with Annihilation as my pick, but none of them had made my list. My number 6, this is interesting. I want you to picture something. I want you to close your eyes and picture this beautiful combination. Once again, to go with the theme, this is a film I'm anticipating because of the follow-up to a previous film I saw from the director. Imagine this. Imagine a movie directed by the director of Room, Lenny Abramson, and mix in the others. That's what I'm picturing for The Little Stranger, which is my number 6. like I said, follow-up from Lenny Abramson, who actually was nominated for Best Director that year when Room came out. That was the one with Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay, and we all pretty much got introduced to him in that movie. That was a great film about claustrophobic emotional intensity, and then that second half of the movie just kills me every single time. In the feels, it's a really well acted film, and it just shows you that you can take a pretty simple story, but really elevate it from an acting point of view and characters. It's so good. I absolutely love that movie from start to finish. I think it was like my number 3 that year, and so. The Little Stranger, it's got a long synopsis, but like I said, basically, it's like The Others, which I'm going to go ahead and just say this on a limb right now. I don't know how Joel feels about this, but The Others is one of the best horror films of the 2000s so far, and that came out in 2001. I absolutely love that movie. I still watch it to this day, and it still shocks me with the twist because I'm so invested into the movie every single time. I keep forgetting about the damn twist at the end. If you have not seen The Others, it is one of the best in the genre. I'm not even joking. Absolutely love that one. But The Little Stranger is my number 6. And the main actor in this one is Donald Gleason. We have Ruth Wilson. We have Will Poulter, Charlotte Rampling. This cast is bonkers. I absolutely love the group here. Donald Gleason is an interesting character because he always appears in like 500 to 600 movies each year, and all ranging from bit parts in Mother and then being in bigger ones like Star Wars. So the guy is just all over the place. Excited to see Will Poulter get more work. And then Charlotte Rampling, believe it or not, I actually have one of her other movies on my honorable mentions list or whatever list I was creating for this, but I decided to go with this one. So The Little Stranger, you make any movie or any haunted house movie like The Others, or what has like the tone or like the atmosphere of The Others, I'm totally down. And when you have this director, I'm all for it. So Joel, is this... I don't know. Like, I have a feeling that this might be on there.
I didn't even know it existed.
Oh, whoops.
I looked through a lot of movies. I just missed that one, but I'm excited now. I mean, it's probably not on my list just because I've already made it, but it does sound terrific. That's a great cast. My number 6 is also a follow-up. It's thanks to Chase that I saw one of these movies early last year, but it's Widows from Steve McQueen. This is his follow-up to a 3-film run that's pretty amazing: Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave. And this one's a little more genre than the other two. They didn't really belong to any particular genre, but this one is when 4 armed robbers are killed in a heist, their grieving spouses decide to attempt to finish the job. Now, get a load of this cast: Viola Davis, Elizabeth Debicki, Michelle Rodriguez, Colin Farrell, Daniel Kaluuya, Liam Neeson, Robert Duvall, Carrie Coon, Garrett Dillahunt, John Bernthal, Jackie Weaver. This is insane. Like, it's also co-scripted by Gillian Flynn, however you say I think it might be Gillian Flynn, of Gone Girl. And I mean, Steve McQueen, come on. It comes out in November. It's likely going to be a big Oscar contender on the basis of his involvement after, winning Best Director and Best Picture. No, he didn't win Best Director, but he won Best Picture. And, he's a vital voice. He's, made 2 of the best films of the decade so far, I think. And this just sounds like an interesting diversion from his usual divergence from his usual forays into hard-hitting drama. This sounds a little more genre friendly to me, but maybe it'll be his version of it, which is a little more hard-hitting. In any case, female-driven heist movie that isn't Ocean's 8. It's a drama. It's a dramatic take on this. It just sounds absolutely killer. So is this on your list?
Well, that's a great segue because that's my number 5.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, you knew this was going to be on here. Like, Joel knows this, and you guys know this. I've raved so much about Shame and 12 Years a Slave. Like, it was going to be on here. And I was doing a little research on this, and this was actually a show in the UK in 1983, and it was a miniseries. So this is a remake, and so that's kind of cool. You know, like, because we have like House of Cards here, but like that was also started over there, so it's like it's cool because most of the stuff from the UK and you know from our neighbors over the pond, it's you know they make some good stuff, and I didn't know it was a remake until I was you know kind of looking it up. I was like, oh, that's kind of fascinating, especially in the 80s. So this is definitely up for a redo, if you will, and so or a reinterpretation. The fact that Steve McQueen, I mean, come on. With that cast, this director, that writer, which, you know, Joel and I differ on Gone Girl, but, you know, she was a part of that, and of course, that movie's elevated because of David Fincher, not because of her, but it's still a strong script, and so when you have Steve McQueen, you know, get that script, he's going to have his input and, you know, kind of change it up a bit, and so when you have those two minds come together, it's going to have, or become something special, and Joel's completely right. We already have a all-female heist type of movie this year, but that's going to be more popcorn fare, more entertainment-driven. And this is going to be entertainment-driven too, but make no mistake about it, it's going to be more Oscar-worthy, more drama-driven. It's going to be more character-based, and it's not going to be about the heist. It's going to be more about the characters. But Widows is definitely up there. I cannot wait for this. And this kind of ends my run of all the follow-up director films. Before I get into the insanity, you guys will probably drop your jaws when I tell you my number 4. But I'm glad that we have something in common, pretty close together. So, but I'm curious though, because you put it at number 6, I put Widows at number 5. So carrying over to you, what is your number 5?
So my number 5 is actually from the director who overtook Steve McQueen's last movie. It's Roma from director Alfonso Cuarón.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this is his first movie since Gravity. It couldn't be more different, though, because he's returning to his roots in Mexico to tell the story of a year in the life of a middle-class Mexican family in the 1970s. That includes a recreation of the Corpus Christi massacre, and it's going to be incredibly autobiographical in nature because it's going to be drawing from memories of his own childhood. And that alone draws me to this. It doesn't have any major stars, anybody people would recognize, and in fact, he's not even working with, you know, some big director of photography like Emmanuel Lubezki. He's working with Galo Olivares, who's popular in Mexico, but you know, not here. So I just can't wait because this is clearly going to be one of his most personal films, if not his most personal film. And I've always loved the guy's works. I haven't seen Y Tu Mamá También. I own it, but I haven't seen it yet. I love this Harry Potter movie. All the way back to A Little Princess in the mid-'90s. I thought that was pretty wonderful. Of course, Children of Men is killer. Gravity's a really good movie. It made my top 10 that year. So my expectations for this couldn't be higher. It's super, super exciting, and yet it's only number 5. So y'all just wait until my top 4 here, especially number 4, given what it is, where it is. But anyway, I'll hand it over to you. Is this on your list?
I'm sorry. I was I just blinked. The Alfonso Cuarón one. No, that I actually, when I was looking up all the movies, and that's probably why my brain's so scrambled right now, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, this is another one of those where it's like it could be opening this year. It might be next year. We don't know yet. We're just going kind of with the expectation that he's going to finish it because he's been working on this for a while. You know, whether it's in conception or actually shooting it, it's a lot of stuff that he's been shooting. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a long movie. But in any case, I'm just kind of going with the possibility of the fact that it'll premiere at Venice perhaps, and then a late year release. Hopefully it gets that, because I can't wait to see what this is all about. I've been hearing about it for a while, and I can't wait.
Well, I mean, I don't think you and I have ever talked about it because we've talked about Gravity before, but I'm a huge fan of Children of Men. So
Yeah. Children of Men's amazing. So Lubezki's photography on that is
Jesus. The one shot, dude. Like it gives me chills. It's
just
amazing.
about any shot.
Well, true, but like that whole one shot is choreographed so precisely. It's amazing.
Ones. There's the one in the car. There's the one following him with the baby. I think that my favorite one in the movie. There's the one that follows him out of the building before it explodes. I think a bit shorter than the other ones, but it's still a long take. Yeah, that movie is a technical marvel, and I'm sure that this one will be too. He likes to use a lot of long takes, so I wouldn't surprise.
Yeah, Gravity opened up with one.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super excited. So what is your number 4?
Oh, okay, so this is where I'm going to lose Joel. I'm going to lose our audience. Everyone's going to tune out. They're going to be like, "You are."
I'm getting ready to quit. Go ahead.
I'm expecting you to. I'm not even joking. Like, you're going to be like, why is this topping Widows, The Little Stranger, Boy Erased, First Man, God Particle? If Beale Street could talk, that is directed by the Moonlight director. I have to set this up because this is the most WTF pick in my entire list. But Joel knows me best. You guys know me best. It was only a matter of time before I put a bonkers choice on my list. So, let me just preface by saying this. This pick could be the worst movie of the year. It could be the dumbest piece of cinema to grace the silver screen in 2018. But, and this is a big ass but, I am looking forward to it because I love absurd humor, I love raunchy comedies, and if I had to pick one that just fills every single urge of just yearning for that raunchy comedy, my number 4 has Elizabeth Banks, Melissa McCarthy, Maya Rudolph, Joel McHale, Jimmy O Yang from Silicon Valley, and Leslie David Baker from The Office. I'm going to go with the Brian Henson directed Happy Time Murders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you were wondering where I was going with it.
This one was close for me, actually.
It's listen.
Yeah.
The plot synopsis is this. When the puppet cast of an 80s children's TV show begins to be murdered one by one, a disgraced LAPD detective turned private eye puppet takes on the case. So this is a raunchy comedy where the world has humans and puppets coexisting. If that doesn't tickle your comedy fancy, I don't know what does.
I mean, you had me worried there for a second, but this is a great choice. It sounds like so much fun. I think we talked about this like a year ago.
Yeah, because we talked about the photo that was released or whatever. It was such a great photo because it had the human and the puppet walking in the door, and then you had the puppet on the ground with the red streams of blood. It's just so good.
It's a great concept. It absolutely could be one of those where it does everything wrong.
Yeah.
But it's one of those like throw something at the wall to see if it to see if it sticks kind of concepts. It could easily go wrong, but I totally get it. This is, if we were to have a 20, this would be on my list because it was hard to part with this one.
Well, I mean, because you know that like I love my raunchy comedies. I'm a sick bastard, and I love when they mix different genres together. And the fact that Jim Henson's son is directing this, and it's gonna be R-rated, raunchy, and just filled with just garbage humor and language, I am all for it. Like it sounds so fun.
Yeah. I mean, this is it's sort of in that vein of like Sausage Party where they're allowed a little bit to let go.
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean, and you know me. Like, you knew this was probably going to be on there at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I had forgotten that, like, I've just been through so many movies looking at them that I had forgotten that this was said to come out this year. But absolutely, yeah, it totally makes sense. You had me worried there, like there was some little tiny, I don't know.
What movie did you think I was talking about?
I have no idea, to be completely honest. I mean, as soon as you started listing the cast, I was like, oh, I recognize that. But in any case, I'm moving from your number 4, which is a murder puppet comedy, a puppet murder comedy. There we go. That's what I meant to say. To a Martin Scorsese movie. Somehow this is only number 4, but it's The Irishman, and it's in De Niro, Pacino, Pesci, Keitel, Paquin, Cannavale, Ray Romano.
That's all you need to say. Moving on.
Jack Houston. It's from Steve Zalian. It's the screenplay. It's coming from Netflix. We assume this year. It could very well move to 2019, but if it comes out this year, then I am so excited. It's about the story of union and official and mobster Frank Sheeran, who claims to have been involved in the death of Jimmy Hoffa. And Al Pacino plays Hoffa, and De Niro plays Sheeran, and Joe Pesci's in there. That's all I need to say. And I assume this is on your list.
I'm going to take a sweet hard pass.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was hoping. I was really hoping, because if not, I was going to quit. I'm just kidding. I love you. I love you, Chase.
Hell, yeah. I would even quit my own show if I didn't have a Scorsese film on my list.
Yeah, I cannot wait. This is his first crime movie since The Departed.
Yep.
I guess unless you kind of want to count Shutter Island, but I'm not going to.
Well, it's also his first time working with De Niro since Casino.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy?
That's what's insane. And Pacino. Wait, and Pacino since then, right? So. Yeah, and Pesci since Goodfellas.
Yeah. Pesci since Casino.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Here's the thing. I'm a terrible person who hasn't seen Casino, so I forgot.
I know. You need to get on that, sir. Okay.
I know.
We're gonna make that a priority before The Irishman. We're sitting and watching Casino.
Yeah, no. I plan to see all of my Scorsese blind spots before then. And there are only a handful, but that isn't a handful, unfortunately. Stuff like Cape Fear and Kundun is also in it, but that's smaller. King of Comedy I haven't seen. So there's several that I need to see. Whereas I have seen The Age of Innocence, which is one of his harder to find ones, at least right now, until it comes out on Criterion. But in any case, this is an awesome premise, like perfect material for him. I can't wait to see what he does with it. And just that cast, man. I just cannot wait to see this movie in all its glory whenever Netflix decides that it's coming out. So hopefully they give it some theater, distribution, because I'd love to see this in a theater. But if not, then Netflix will do. So that is my number 4. You're going to pass on it. So what's your number 3?
All right, so this is going to shock everyone. But actually, not really. So my number 3 is the one comic book movie I put on there, and yes, this is a no shit choice. It's Avengers: Infinity War.
Wow, I thought this was going to be your number 1.
Oh, well, you're going to be quite shocked when you see what's above Avengers: Infinity War. No, listen. You guys knew this was coming. It's 10 years in the making. Joel knew this was coming. I love me some comic book movies. Joel picked his one, Black Panther, which I'm really looking forward to. To be quite honest with you, even Aquaman, I'm looking forward to every single one of them, whether it be from Fox, Disney, or DC. I'm looking forward to all of them. It's a really good slate this year. But make no mistake about it, you're talking about 10 years worth of investment. Of course I'm going to pick the one that's leading up into this point. Looking forward to it. We've talked about the trailer ad nauseum. I love that trailer. I keep watching it over and over again. I just love Silvestri's score. I know I keep harping on the score, but make no mistake about it, Alan Silvestri's score for the 2012 Avengers is one of the best superhero themes next to Hans Zimmer's The Dark Knight of the modern era.
It's like both of those are honestly two of the best franchise scores in general.
Oh yeah, in general. Like I'm not even like if you if you ask me, hey Chase, could you hum Thor: The Dark World's theme? I'd be like, no, I can't, because I don't know it.
It had a theme?
Yeah, it had a musical score, an accompaniment. No, if you tell me, could you hum the Avengers theme? Dun, 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 dun. Like, and plus, I worked at the theater when the first Avengers came out, so that thing is ingrained in my head. It's one of the most recognizable themes, like Joel said, next to like the Dark Knight or whatever. So I cannot wait for this. This is it, folks. Like, I'm so glad that when Iron Man came out in 2008, they stuck with the plan. They kept it going. My girlfriend and I are currently power throughing the marathon right now. We just watched Thor, so we got to get on Captain America and the Avengers before. We're gonna watch all of them before Black Panther comes out, and then we're gonna have that 3-month gap and watch Infinity War. So I'm glad I'm catching up on all my stuff again. But yeah, no kidding, this was gonna be on there. But it was a really close pick, believe it or not. I had a toss up between this and New Mutants, because here's the deal. I know Black Panther is going to be great because of Ryan Coogler. Deadpool sequel, yes. Ant-Man and the Wasp, yes. Aquaman, pure curiosity at this point. The Dark Phoenix, I was looking forward to all of those. But if I had to pick like a dark horse pick, it was the New Mutants, because I really love the trailer. I like the fact that they're going kind of that horror haunted house route. So that was actually really close to being my pick. But, I mean, it's 10 years worth of investment. Even if you think of Marvel, Disney Marvel, as like this TV show that just keeps going and going, that's how I equate these movies. Is that it's just a really well done TV show, and this is the, part 1 of the series finale. So you kind of have to pick this one. So, but when I pick my number 2, you're going to be like, wow, that's your number 2? What is wrong with you? Are you high right now? No, I'm not, but you might think I am. So that is my number 3, Avengers Infinity War. Joel already knew this was going to be on there, so he doesn't even need to combat with this answer. So, Joel, what is your number 3? Because we're getting into our top 3. Like, this is it. This is the cream of the crop. So the fact that I just shocked you with Avengers Infinity War, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is your number 10, which is If Beale Street Could Talk.
Interesting.
I kind of sort of liked Moonlight okay, and I think that
yeah, just okay,
just a little bit. But not only is the plot of this movie fascinating, it's from an author, James Baldwin, who was a civil rights leader, and he was a novelist, but he was also a philosopher. And there's no person more perfect for this material from this author than Barry Jenkins, who, Moonlight was clearly the best film of 2016. It won an award that said that, but even more importantly, it just was. And now he's got, a great cast, not the starriest names other than Dave Franco and maybe Diego Luna, but in any case, he's got, key people returning to work on it, from, James Laxton as cinematographer. He did the best cinematography of 2016 for my money with Moonlight, and Joy McMillan and Nat Sanders are back as editors. It's not A24, it's Annapurna and Plan B, which is an interesting little crossover. But clearly he's not just gonna always work with A24. I feel like that's okay, considering he's just a great director, and Moonlight spoke to that fact. And so this being his next project is perfect. It's perfect, and I can't wait. Just to reiterate the plot one more time, a pregnant woman in Harlem desperately scrambles to prove the father of her unborn child is innocent of the crime of which he is accused. It's gonna tap into a lot of the stuff that was in conversation last year, in the political, cultural sphere. And so, yeah, I mean, the fact that the director of Moonlight only made my number 3 most anticipated, my top 2 are very strange, so I can't wait to get into it. But first, I want to hear your number 2, because you've been hyping that up for a few minutes here.
Yeah, so once again with like the Happy Time murders, this is going to throw everyone off. But this has a lot of factors in place, so let me explain myself. I am a fan of the franchise, the majority of it. I'm a fan of the director. I'm a fan of the writers. I'm a fan of what this director did on a certain TV season last year. I am also just vastly curious on what in the hell Danny McBride and David Gordon Green are going to do for the Halloween movie. I've been a fan.
Wow.
I know, right? It's quite shocking.
So now I know what your number one is, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, duh. No, for this version of Halloween, I'm going to go ahead and just say this right now. I love the original. I love the original sequel. H2O is fine, and Resurrection is terrible, but it's like a fun, enjoyable, terrible movie. And I'm one of the few people on planet Earth that didn't mind Rob Zombie's first one. I actually kind of like it. The only major issue I have with it is because the shaky cam is just too much. That was like when Rob Zombie was trying to establish his style a little bit, and it was a little too much for me. So it was very poorly edited. But the overall story and just kind of the exploration of Michael Myers in this new fashion, I was okay with. On the same coin, I hated the sequel. So take that information for what you will. I want to see where this kind of mindset goes for this franchise, because Danny McBride and David Gordon Green have specifically said this will be a continuation of the sequel. So after Halloween 2, which was set in a hospital for the most part, I want to see where they kind of go from there. And Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back to reprise her role as Laurie, and her daughter is going to be played by Judy Greer. Like, that's perfect. I don't care who you are. You can try to fight me on that. That is perfect casting. But I'm going to be honest with you. It's a franchise that, yes, has been it's been teetering. There's some good, there's some bad. I just want to see what these two guys do with it. And I'm not going to lie. This is probably two reasons why it went higher on my list. One is Stronger. David Gordon Green, once again, knocked it out of the park with that. Joel and I raved very high about that movie, and he did a fantastic job, so I wanted to see him kind of transition to a horror film now. And two, I'm surprised more people don't talk about this show, but Vice Principals is one of the best dark comedies I've seen in quite some time, and it seems like, our boy Brian and I are like the only two that ever talk about that. And so I remember when season 2 was streaming last year on HBO, Brian and I would talk about it all the time. We're like, man, that was such a great episode. And it seemed like no one else was talking about that show. And there was 9 episodes last season, and David Gordon Green directed 8 out of the 9 episodes, and he did such a great job. So the guy he's just one of those directors that can tackle anything. Danny McBride, the best thing he ever did was Vice Principals. And he's a great writer. They're really good at making comedies. They're really good at making dark comedies. They're really good at dramas. What the hell are they going to do with the horror film? So I think it's just 100% curiosity at this point. But the talent behind it, the fact that it's be a continuation of the sequel, John Carpenter's coming back to do the music. It's like, why not, man? I'm a fan of the franchise, so you know what? F it. I'm putting this as my number 2. Joel, are you shocked right now?
I guess I am a little bit, not because I'm not looking forward to the movie. I am just that it's so high. But I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's such a divergence from Gordon Green. Well, if he even has a style, it's a divergence from his style.
That's what's great about
him. He doesn't really have a style. I mean, this is a guy who also directed Snow Angels, and also did Joe. Like as you mentioned that one earlier, he did that one. He did Your Highness. He did
Pineapple Express. It's
which
crazy.
Might be my favorite actually that he's done, but. That I've seen. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly going to be interesting to see where he goes with the horror genre.
Well, and you know that my boy Jason Blum is producing it, so it's got a good producer behind it. So yeah, the formula works for this one. You figure nothing can go wrong, but I'm just very worried that something will go wrong.
Right. Yeah. With stuff like this, it's always the fear. But yeah, I'm actually sort of a Halloween virgin. I've only seen the original movie, and that's about it. So my goal is to see the others before all of them before the new one comes out, and we have all of them at work. All of the original movie sequels and the two reboots that I haven't seen those. So very very interested to finally get on that train and see it. So my top two are both, they're not tied, of course, because they're my top two, but they're tied together by an element about their production that is basically they've been long gestating projects. Um, okay, so my number two is The Man Who Killed Don Quixote from Terry Gilliam.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that this is finally coming out is something worth celebrating in itself, but it just sounds so killer. It's an ad executive is mysteriously transported to 17th century Spain, where he becomes the companion to the would-be knight Don Quixote. I mean, come on, that's an awesome premise. It was originally shot in the year 2000 with Johnny Depp and the late Jean Rochefort. Jean Rochefort is a renowned French actor who would work with directors like Patrice Leconte in the 90s, and he was going to come together with Johnny Depp, big budding star at that point. He was deep into his career, but he hadn't been a movie star. This was going to be one of those that made his name even bigger, working with the director of Brazil and all of that, 12 Monkeys. But then the production was shut down because there were injuries and an act of God that kind of put it out of commission. It's since been on life support. Robert Duvall's been attached, John Hurt, Jack O'Connell, Ewan McGregor. But now that Adam Driver is nice and famous, he's in the movie with Jonathan Pryce, who is reuniting with Gilliam. He was in Brazil. And I can't wait to see what finally is going to come of this. It's apparently going to be at Cannes, which means that we could get it over the summer, maybe in the in the fall sometime. If at all this year, hopefully this year. But I'm excited to finally see where all of this has arrived, and if it's a masterpiece, hopefully it is. But whatever it is, it'll certainly be interesting. We can know that. So that's my number two. And if you thought that was weird, the fact that Terry Gilliam has finally made his Don Quixote movie that he's been trying to make for 20 years, if you think that's weird, just wait. So Chase, I know now that this is not on your list, but are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, believe it or not, I didn't really know it was coming out until you brought it up and you were super excited about it, but I don't know if I've ever seen a Terry Gilliam movie.
Have you seen 12 Monkeys?
No. I mean, look, I have, but it might have just been in pieces because I remember when I was a kid, I got that. When I was a kid, I got that confused with Seven because they had similar VHS covers. So, right, yeah. I don't think I've seen it.
And Brad Pitt.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think I've seen it.
Okay. I'm actually very I haven't seen very many. I think I've seen 12 Monkeys. I've seen whatever was going on with the Brothers Grimm.
I didn't see that one.
It's a terrible movie. That might be it. I haven't seen Brazil. I haven't seen Time Bandits.
Neither have I. I haven't seen either.
Yeah, I need to. We have them at work. I keep saying that this week about movies that people have been pointing out. I have them at work. I just need to rent them. But yeah, I'm just super excited to see where it's all ended up, and so it just made sense considering my top two are themed that way, long gestating projects. That this would be my number two. So obviously we know you're number one now, but just say it.
My number one is 50 Shades Freed, as well as Peter Rabbit. I couldn't really pick between the two, so it is a tie. And that, fun fact, those come out on the same weekend.
You'll get to see them on the same weekend. There
exactly. It'll be a great double feature of whipping, sex, and little rabbits. All right, so so my number one, obviously, it's The Irishman. Are you kidding me? It's Scorsese. 3 of my favorite movies of all time are done by him. Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver. And then when you have like all of his other films, like Wolf of Wall Street, The Departed, Shutter. I actually love Shutter Island. The After Hours. What a small little movie that no one ever talks about. Now,
my favorite is one that I just recently discovered, and that's The Last Temptation of Christ.
I've never seen that one, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like there are pockets in this man's filmography that I still haven't even seen yet. So I love exploring new Scorsese movies like The Last Temptation of Christ.
We will watch that one together. We will watch the Last Temptation of Christ together at some point.
You and I need to just do a marathon because I've never seen The King of Comedy either.
Yeah, that's when I can't wait to see. I can't really find the DVD, but I think it's like online somewhere. So we'll have to do that. Streaming somewhere. I should say.
We'll also do a Casino as well because like Casino is just as epic as Goodfellas. It gets overshadowed because Goodfellas is, to many people
came first.
Superior. Yeah, exactly. It came first. But
have you seen The Aviator?
No, actually, that's one of the ones I haven't seen.
Oh man, that movie is a masterpiece. I love that movie. You
rave about that one all the time.
Yeah, it's one of the great screen biopics of all time. It's one of the best movies.
I love me some Howard Hughes, so I wouldn't mind.
Have you seen Gangs of New York?
Oh yeah, Gangs of New York. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, listen, Scorsese is a legend for a reason, and that's my point exactly. You keep bringing up stuff that I keep forgetting that he's done. And
Bringing Out the Dead is one we'll have to watch if you haven't seen that.
But I haven't seen that one either. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I love this man so much. Like he always comes out with something new, whether it be, coming out with Shutter Island, this dark, mysterious psychological thriller, and then 2 years later coming out with Hugo, a kid's film. It's like, what is this guy's problem? Like he just, he has no filter. It's just all over the place.
You also haven't seen The Age of Innocence, correct?
No.
Okay, we'll definitely watch that because that's his other PG-rated movie.
Great, so, like that's what I'm saying. Like I love this man so much. Like, and he seems like the best grandpa ever. Like I can't wait until I meet him and shake his hand, and he's probably gonna like just pat me on the back and be like, "You go get him, kid." I'll be like, "You're right, Scorsese. I will go get him." But
I'm gonna make a lot of people mad with this, but I love Goodfellas. It's a movie that shaped me, and I have 3 movies above it that I love more from Scorsese. So the guy is a master.
Yeah, 2 of them were Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. Listen, I love Goodfellas to death, but I saw Taxi Driver and Raging Bull kind of late in my life, and by late I mean literally like the past 2 years, and I will tell you that those 2 are vastly superior. But that's the thing with Scorsese, you can't really pinpoint. It's just like they're all good. But to go back to The Irishman, it's almost like we were leading up to this point. You have De Niro, who he's worked with many times. You have Pacino, who, him and De Niro are like, 2 of the greatest back in the day. I mean, they did a collaboration, but we're not going to speak of that one. But like this one, then you bring back Pesci. It's going to be a gangster film. It's like, it has all the right pieces to be a success. And I am totally with Joel, and I'm so glad he brought this up. I am glad it's going to be on Netflix because, of course, I am a subscriber. So cool, I will be able to get it. But if it's actually playing in a theater, I want to see it in a theater because I love nothing more than Scorsese's cinematic vision for his films. He always has a cinematic feel to every single thing he does, and it requires you to see it in a theater. So if I can see this on the big screen, I will totally pay for it. I don't even care that I pay my $10 to $11 a month for Netflix and I can get it for free. I will still pay for it. Listen, this was a set in stone number 1. I actually had this set in mind before I even did my top 10. I was like, all right, that's number 1. Let's figure out the rest. I love Scorsese.
It was also mine until I made it.
Yeah, exactly. But no, this is one of those directors to where I don't care what he does. It could be a coked out frat house movie like Wolf of Wall Street. It could be a kid film like Hugo. It could be a movie about Jesus Christ. It doesn't matter what he does. I will still see it. I will support it. This is going to break new grounds. It is going to be even more expensive than Bright, which was right now Netflix's most expensive film. The Irishman is well over $100 million. It could be the first one done by Netflix to be released in a theater, so it can qualify, and it has a very good possibility to win the Covenant Prize. The biggest prize right now that a streaming service has, I believe, is Manchester by the Sea with Best Actor and Best Screenplay. That's the furthest a streaming service has gone, besides Best Foreign Film, because they also have done that. But I'm talking like the big honcho, Best Picture. If Netflix can do this or even get nominated, get close with The Irishman, we're done. We've changed the game. It's done. So this is going to be a game changer for the streaming industry. There have been many films that have been nominated for plenty of awards. I'm not saying that this will be the first one to do that, but this will be the first one to actually make a serious dent into because we're talking Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Director, pretty much every single acting category you can think of. The fact that Joe Pesci has the opportunity to possibly get another Best Supporting Actor nom and maybe even a win like he did with Goodfellas is just it brings a tear to my eye. This film could do it, and I can't wait for it. It's like Joel said, we don't know for sure if this is going to be released this year. It says currently it's still filming, and
apparently there's a lot of visual effects work, which it's obviously like background stuff, but it's still interesting.
The aging thing, because that's exactly what I was going to say, is that this post-production on this movie is going to be way more intense than the filming process, so I don't know, but it seems like Scorsese is driven to get this movie out, so just like with Silence, this movie has been in the works for decades. He's been wanting to do this, so yes, Scorsese always wins the day. That is my number one, obviously. So now that I've hyped up my weirdo picks in my list, Joel has been hyping up his number one. So please, sir, bless us with your choice, because I have no idea where you're going with this.
All right. So it's also a Netflix movie. It's not been as widely advertised, because there's really nothing finished with this movie yet, but all right, so I'm going to tell you the title, and then I want you to tell me if you've ever heard of this floating around anywhere. It's called The Other Side of the Wind.
Okay, before you tell me plot, actors, or whatever, is it a giveaway if you give me the director name?
Yeah, I'm going to build up to that.
Okay, never mind.
Because the director name is important, and you're not going to believe it. So, I'm going to tell you the synopsis first, all right? And then I will literally maybe kill you with a heart attack by telling you who directed this. Okay, so here's the synopsis for this movie. A revered but past-it filmmaker struggling to complete his recent film celebrates his 70th birthday party in the company of a cross-section of 1970s Hollywood. Now, I said that I would do that before I told you the director's name. I'm going to renege on that. I'm going to tell you some of the cast members. All right? So, the main character is played by John Huston, who was the director of movies like The Dead and Fat City in the 70s. He's Angelica Houston's father. It co-stars Peter Bogdanovich, who was the director of stuff like The Last Picture Show in the 70s. It has Dennis Hopper in it. It has Claude Chabrol, who's a popular French director. It has Paul Mazursky, who was a famous director in the 70s. And the director of the movie, are you ready, Chase? Or do you think you're ready?
No.
Okay.
Because you haven't given me enough clues to even decipher who is behind this.
Okay. So the director of The Other Side of the Wind is Orson Welles.
Orson Welles is still making movies?
Orson Welles died in 1985.
Okay, so this is a movie that was made and put on the shelf then.
Okay, so this is a movie that started being made in the 1970s, and then this is a fascinating story, and this is why I wanted to go last, because this is the movie that has the most stuff to talk about. So, oh boy. All right. So the story of this movie is that it was shot over the course of 6 years, or most of it was shot over the course of 6 years from 1970 to 1976. And part of its funding came from the Shah of, I think, Iran, back when Orson Welles was friendly with the Shah of Iran. And then the Shah of Iran, something fell through with his government, and it was funding the movie. So when whatever it was involving him failed, the movie just suddenly lost its funding when it had, I think, 40 minutes to go, or 40% of it to go, or something like that. It might be less than that. I can't remember how much was shot. But in any case, this was a project that evolved after the suicide of Ernest Hemingway, who was one of Orson Welles' best friends. And Hemingway had committed suicide in 1961, and so Welles had just kind of come up with this idea of an artist who was very lonely and was celebrating his birthday with a lot of people that he knew. There were higher ups in the industry. And so this is a movie that's going to have a high volume of filmmakers playing roles, sort of, I guess, versions of themselves in this movie. And Peter Bogdanovich, who is still living, and by the way, John Huston has died. I think Claude Chabrol has died. Dennis Hopper has died. I think Paul Mazursky's died. So a lot of these people have gone on since this movie was in production, including Welles himself. But he completed most of the movie, and so I believe that he had completed most of the movie by the time some of the DGA rules set in that said that if you complete a certain percentage, you get full director credit. So Peter Bogdanovich and Netflix came together with a big time array of editors and behind the scenes people to finish the movie. And on that note, I feel like it's not going to be a movie that's complete or cohesive enough to qualify for a top 10 list like we do at the end of the year. It just feels like it's going to be too patchwork for that, because there are still crucial scenes to film and they never got filmed, and now they need to be filmed with, or like somehow achieved having none of the stars alive to do it. But whatever it is, I think it's promised to be interesting. I have heard that there was, I think in 2006, 45 minutes of the movie shown at some private event, and that 45 minutes was very good. So I'm just hoping that Netflix gets it done and gets it out this year or at some point. I will say, though, if it doesn't get out this year, I am not going to just automatically put this at number one. Next year when we do this, I'll probably do a special mention of it, just because I want to make room for something else. Particularly with something like this, where it's kind of on the fence in terms of production and being completed. But whatever it is, it's from Orson Welles, who, Citizen Kane changed things. And so he's obviously a formative director, and whatever state this is in, it's obviously crucial. And especially with something like this, a premise that is said to be highly satirical, by the way, which is interesting. Supposedly he's satirizing a lot of the new wave movements of European film culture from right before then in the 60s and 50s. With his camera work, he shot in 35 millimeter, 9 millimeter, 16 millimeter, 70 millimeter, a lot of the other millimeters, 65, I think, even. And so he's got all these different things like black and white. He does still photographs. He has moving photographs. So it's like this big collage of different styles, and in this very compact kind of contained story. And apparently it's like there were at one point he had like 4 screenplays for this material, 4 different screenplays. And then he kind of just chose one because they were all versions of the same story. But he had worked on this for, like 10 years before ever shooting it. And then the shoot just died. And it was at that late point in his career, hoping for something to kind of put him back on the map as a filmmaker, because, he directed stuff pretty consistently, but not since the late 50s and early 60s. And so he was wanting to come back with something as a director after doing several years of acting in small roles, and this was gonna be that, and then it just didn't happen. And it's because he had his money in like international waters, and all that stuff fell apart. And so now Peter Bogdanovich is is kind of forced to complete the film by patching it together from what it was all those years ago. And I watched a little tiny featurette where it shows how difficult it is to move all of the film, and it's a bunch of film, to try to piece it together. And so anyway, whatever this is, it's my most anticipated movie of whatever year it comes out. In this case, it seems to be that it's, the whispers are that it might be ready by the end of the year. Again, it's probably not going to be one of those things that's complete enough to consider for a top 10, but it's going to be a curio for sure, and I can't wait to see whatever it is. That's my number 1.
Yeah, that's quite shocking, because you literally pulled a movie out from the grave, and you're like, yeah, it's gonna be resurrected Frankenstein style, and it's gonna be a movie. I mean, it sounds cool. I'm willing to give it a shot whenever, like you said, it does come out. But yeah, that's the thing with these lists, man, is that, I mean, this is not going to happen, obviously, but like Infinity War could be pushed for all we know. And it's like, you never know nowadays. Like, movies are just like, yeah, we're ready to come out. We're just ready to show off to the world. And, oh, they're going to be pushed 3 years. It's like, okay, thanks for that. So my list is pointless. But, yeah, that is an interesting pick. And I'll guarantee you, none of our listeners will have that on their list because, just like myself, I had no idea it even existed. But what about you guys? Is there any movies that you guys are looking forward to? I mean, there's only like a few coming out this year. But just let us know down below. What are some of the films that you're looking forward to this year? Because there's a lot of them, guys. Netflix, indie films, big films, they're all over the place. But just to reiterate, my list from 10 to 1, we have If Beale Street Could Talk, God Particle, First Man, Boy Erased, The Little Stranger, Widows, The Happy Time Murders, Avengers Infinity War, the 2018 version of Halloween, and The Irishman. Joel, can you recap your crazy list leading up to literally a film that was dead and now has been resurrected?
So yeah, at number 10, I had Incredibles 2, number 9, Black Panther, number 8, Ready Player One. Number 7, I had a tie between Ad Astra and Annihilation. Number 6 was Widows. Number 5 was Roma. Number 4 was The Irishman. Number 3 was If Beale Street Could Talk. Number 2 was The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. And number 1, from the director of Citizen Kane, The Other Side of the Wind.
I mean, I was fixing to say, like, it puts my number 1 to shame, but it's like Orson Welles and Scorsese, like, they're in the conversation of, like, they are the best directors of all time.
They are masters. I mean, yeah. Scorsese was directly inspired by Welles, so that certainly puts that in perspective. But, yeah, I mean, certainly they are both masters of their generation and future generations, but particularly of their generation. They were formative voices that inspired a lot of people. And So yeah, two absolutely strong choices. I mean, your number one was somehow my number four, and it was like I said, it was. I sat down and then I saw all these movies coming out, and I was like, "Whoa!" A Scorsese movie with De Niro, Pesci, Keitel, and Pacino is number four. It's impossible to imagine that, but that is how it is. So
we just live in a world where that can happen. So, like I said, guys, those are our list of the most anticipated. But it's like Joel said, we're looking forward to hundreds of movies this year. So it was really hard to whittle down. But I think I'm comfortable with my list. He's comfortable with his, and I have a movie that features puppets killing other puppets. Probably like so. There you go. That's my mindset. So Joel. That is the wrap up of this episode of 212. What are we doing next week for episode 213?
Well, first, because you forgot, we have to do my my Oscar talk.
No, we don't. I'm just kidding. I completely forgot we were doing that this week. You need to remind me of this stuff. Because you never said anything, so we're like, okay, we're doing our list.
I was just like, well, I hope he maybe remembers. I'll make it quick. So we're doing Best Actor and Actress this week, which means that they're big, big categories, but they're pretty easy this year to figure out. So I'm going to start with Best Actress. Right now, I feel like the obvious contenders have been obvious for a while. There's a couple of them on the outskirts. Judi Dench for Victoria and Abdul might get in there. Jessica Chastain for Molly's Game. Michelle Williams for All the Money in the World might, for all we know. But I think that the five are pretty clear. There's Margot Robbie, who is awesome in I, Tonya. I saw that this week. Sally Hawkins for playing a mute woman in the Shape of Water. It was a great performance with a lot of difficulty to it. Frances McDormand in Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is a great sort of companion piece to her performance in Fargo. In a certain way, very different characters, but in a sense, small town kind of milieu. And then Meryl Streep in The Post. She's Meryl Streep, so she's going to be nominated, as Jared Leto once said. That's as according to the law in California. But she's great in the Post, so it would be it's not a phoned in role from her. But I feel like right now the tide has turned, and the well, this is part me hoping, but I actually do genuinely think that the tide has turned, and the front runner is Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird, and I really hope it happens. It's the best performance of the year, objectively speaking. I'm just saying that for Chase's benefit, so that he doesn't think anything else. And I can't wait until that. I can't wait for that to happen. But obviously, if she doesn't win, they're going to go for Streep or McDormand. The people who have won before, certainly the Academy like them a lot. And but those I think right now are the five nominees, with Saoirse Ronan winning. As for Best Actor, it's interesting. This category has kind of – it's interesting because this category has kind of turned in a lot of ways in which I didn't expect. Because before this week – or before, well, say like maybe the last month or two, I would have told you that Tom Hanks for The Post, Denzel Washington for Roman J. Israel Esquire, and Jake Gyllenhaal for Stronger were obvious contenders. Like they were – obviously going to be in here, but this just tells you how successfully critics can put performances in movies on the map for Academy voters. Those three have fallen out. I mean, it's just such a competitive race, even if it's kind of a fluid category. But obviously Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread, it's supposedly his last performance. I honestly have doubts about that fact, but whatever. It's Daniel Day-Lewis in a PTA movie, and he won the last time he was in one, so that's a clear contender. James Franco for The Disaster Artist it's going to be so funny, as Chase has pointed out, to see James Franco sit next to Tommy Wiseau at the Oscars. They play a clip of James Franco as Tommy Wiseau while he's sitting next to Tommy Wiseau, and then they turn to both of them with the camera. I mean, it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out. This is a performance that a lot of people were doubting early on, but I feel like he's in. It's a great performance, first of all, and it's in a movie that's really turning out to be a critical darling in this season, rather unexpectedly, given its early release. So hopefully that goes places. I love the performance, and I really hope he gets in. Timothée Chalamet for Call Me by Your Name is really creeping up. I think it's actually a very close race between him and the top one. But I really hope it's Chalamet. I really hope he wins this award. He's 22, and he gave a performance that was insanely heartfelt. It would be great if 2 stars of Lady Bird won Best Actor and Actress. I would go bonkers if that happened. I'm already bonkers. I would go bonkerser if that happened. If Timothée Chalamet, who played the douchey hipster in Lady Bird, won Best Actor for Call Me by Your Name, I would just go crazy. But I think that they are going to finally give it to Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour. It's an okay movie. It's a great performance from him. It's probably not one that I personally would nominate just because there were better performances this year, but certainly they're going to go to give it to him because, it's a performance by a method actor as a famous historical figure, and he's just been ignored for so long. He's barely ever been nominated. I think he was only nominated once, right, for Tinker Tailor. So I'm thinking that it's possible that he wins this time. But if he doesn't, don't be surprised if Chalamet gets in there and becomes the youngest Best Actor winner, because it could very well happen, and it should. So that's my Oscar thing. It's a bit shorter this week just because they're so clear cut. There's not a whole lot to discuss as we get closer to the nominations, and at some point, I'm feeling like by next Friday we're going to have an extra episode about who we think the Academy voters should not ignore. Whether or not we feel like they're actually contenders. We're going to be talking about some people, including some people in movies, including performances in these categories. So stay tuned for that. And that's it for my Oscar talk this week.
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty much clear cut with these 2 categories. With Best Actress, you and I have our preferences. Obviously, I'm going to go McDormand over Ronan, but to each his own. They're both strong performances.
In the words of our esteemed president, wrong.
No, in the words of our esteemed president, for you, sad baby. All right, so no,
you didn't go for fake news. I'm so disappointed.
Well, Joel, you're always fake news, and I'm always the realest news. With Best Actor, you and I already knew it was going to be Gary Oldman. You and I both agree the film is just okay at best, but the performance is definitely the heart of that entire movie. But Timothée Chalamet, it does have a good chance of being nominated and possibly sneaking in there to win. But this just goes to show you how important advertising is. It kind of irks me that Stronger is going to be left at the wayside for this entire awards program, because the WGA awards came out and that was nowhere listed under adapted. What the hell?
I think it was ineligible. There's a lot of stuff with eligibility. You have to pay or something if they didn't have enough, or you could do it retroactively, but that's a pain in the butt. But you basically have to pay to be eligible for it. There's something with the WGA rules that there's a fee, and it's fairly high. And so if they don't pay it, or if it's some weird rules, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the ineligible movies.
Well, the whole point just kind of wraps around with that movie's just being forgotten, because you're totally right. Jake Gyllenhaal gives one of the best lead performances of the year, and that movie, from every angle, directing, cinematography, everything, it's not even being touched.
It's very much being ignored. It's a great movie. I would blame a lot on it being left out, but the WGA is just beyond its control, essentially. There's so much with that's weird and nebulous, and I don't like it, to be completely honest. But it's just where it's at. It just wasn't eligible for that. It should have been, because it's a great script, and from a newcomer, should be in the running. But man, I'm sad that they couldn't do whatever they had to do to be eligible for the WGA. But
it's just crazy to me how like all the advertising stuff works, because it's like, hey, Lionsgate, you really pushed La La Land last year, but you won't push Stronger this year. It's just weird, but whatever. Those are that. I mean, with those two categories, we pretty much agree that it's a lock between like two people at best per category. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see where the nominations land, because they could throw some dark horses in there and surprise us, like Best Actor. Could throw us in maybe Hugh Jackman for Logan. That would be pretty cool. So we don't know yet until the nominations come in, but
they're certainly pushing Logan, so I wouldn't be surprised if something happens there.
Yeah,
Weird.
I mean, but I think you pretty much nailed it for like 95% of it. Like, it's going to be those people you mentioned. So that is the Oscar corner for Mr. Joseph over there. So now that we are getting closer to that, we have to, eventually in this episode and get closer to the next episode. So, Joel, what are we doing next week? Because, January has just a slew of wonderful greatness coming out this month.
Oh, boy. Well, next week we're going to finally review The Post. That opened in Dallas this week, but just because of this show and because it was originally coming out on the 12th, we decided to review it then. So we'll have a review for you of that, and also The Commuter, our first 2018 review. And also we'll be back with like news, because there's a lot that's happened in a month and we haven't done that in a month. And also several trailers have dropped, and we'll be talking about those. So we're back in the regular programming, if you will, of our usual episodes next week with The Commuter and The Post.
Yes, which will be an interesting mix, considering the fact that we have not seen The Commuter yet, but we saw The Post from what it seems like 5 years ago. So it's like, good Lord. Yeah, thank you, Focus Features. We couldn't see Phantom Thread in time, but 20th Century Fox gave us The Post 2 months ahead of time. So that just shows you how weird that is, too. But yeah, that will be episode 213. And of course, like Joel said, we'll probably throw in an extra Oscar type episode like we did last year, but we'll work that out eventually. But with the Oscar season, as you guys know, we'll have a nominations recap episode, and then we'll have the two special ones, cover the Oscars live. We'll have the whole shebang like we did last year to give you guys the extra in-close, in-depth coverage. That will be a lot of fun. So that will do it for this week's episode, guys, for 212. It's been fun. It's been wonderful to talk about the year to come, but now, starting next week, let's actually start the year right and talk about it. But before we end, Joel, where can the people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. By the time this is up, I think, unless this is live, I don't know. We're recording this on Friday.
It definitely isn't live. I'm glad that you waited 2 hours to ask me that.
Yeah, I totally just thought of that. So by the time this is put up, I'll have 3 new reviews, including my first 2 of 2018. Before I Wake, I, Tonya, and Insidious: The Last Key. That's at joelonfilm.com. You can find some of my writing at dallasmoviescreenings.com. Chase and I have a joint review of The Post there. And you can follow me on Twitter at RealJoelCopling. That's ReelJoelCopling. And on Letterboxd at JCopling. And that's me. What about you, Chase?
Yes, so on Twitter you can find me at RealChaseLee, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And just like with Joel, we both did Insidious: The Last Key, so we aren't going to talk about it here, but I can tell you that we both differ greatly on the movie, but that is the first official review that we will have done on separate channels for the new year. So go check that out. I got a bunch of other reviews on there as well. And of course, Dallas Movie Screenings, like Joel said. I reviewed Hostiles for them as well. So a bunch of other stuff. And of course, this podcast please spread it around, spread the good word. And if you guys missed last week's episode, the top 10 of 2017, we had Mark Dusick on, a critic that, Joel and I both respect. So, go check that out if you missed it. This one, spread it around. Do you guys know the drill? I don't need to tell you guys to like, follow, subscribe, comment, do whatever you have to do, because here's the deal, guys. If you were not a movie fan, and you made it through this entire podcast with Joel and I talking about movies that we haven't even seen trailers for or pictures of for the most part, and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully we convince you to be one. This is a community to talk about films. We are passionate about it, so hopefully you are too. This has been Reel Me In, a movie podcast, and all the links will be in the description below for everything we have talked about. We will see you guys next week for another great episode, episode 213, the first official episode of 2018. See you guys next week for that. And until then, have a good week, good weekend, whenever you're listening to this. Peace out, everyone.
Bye-bye.